Hello. I wanted to speak to you about my life plans moving forward, but in order to do that properly, I feel like I need to be open and honest about some things. But first, let's hear from the TLDW. Thanks, bitch. Alright, today it is being reported that John Smith is leaving Funhaus as a producer. What does that mean as a producer? It means he's staying on as cast and will be in just as many videos as he has been before. So nothing will be changing for Funhaus viewers. Basically, he's just going to be streaming more and he's going to be releasing videos on his YouTube channel and maybe some music. Alright, back to you, bitch. Now that that's out of the way, let's talk about mental health. In January of 2020, I started going to therapy, and within 15 minutes of my first session, my therapist said, "Let's pause for a second. I'm about 95% sure you're bipolar." Now, a little disclaimer, I'm going to talk very frankly about my bipolar disorder, and if you're sitting there listening going, "You're describing me!" Don't self-diagnose yourself based off of my experiences. Seek out a therapist and speak to them about it. Please do not reach out to me for advice because I am not a medical professional. I'm sorry, but I know I'm going to get a lot of messages about this, and I can't be an emotional support for all of you. It's just, that's asking too much of me. Now, as a child, I was fairly well-mannered. Of course, I was very weird, but I got good grades, I liked Pokemon, etc., etc. Then, in senior year of high school, something fairly shitty happened. There was this guy at my church named Ryan. He was the coolest guy I'd ever known. He played video games, he drove a quad, he had a soul patch, all of the cool stuff that you might remember from the early 2000s. I'd looked up to this guy for most of my life, and in my adolescence, he became both a friend and a mentor. Now, if you were raised Christian, you've probably picked up on it. Yes, this was my youth pastor. But really, I wasn't just one of his flock. He would invite me to things that just the older kids were going to, even though I was pretty young. He'd bring me out to the desert with his family to ride on said quads. He had me in his inner circle, and I felt special. I held him up on this pedestal as the person that I thought I should be. And then it turned out that he was a pedophile, and he had been in an abusive relationship for years with my sister. And it started when she was only 15 years old. Now, if you're lucky enough to have not gone through anything like this, let me tell you that trauma fucks up everyone, not just the direct victim. And by that, I mean that this was such a shock to my system that I basically just buried it and didn't acknowledge it for a number of years. I wasn't angry at Ryan. I just didn't think about Ryan. I just did not think about it. And instead of supporting my sister, I just started to hate her. That sucks to say, but that's what happened. To be completely honest, it wasn't until I started smoking weed in college and started spending a lot of time in introspection that I came to accept what happened as the truth. The man whom I held up as my own moral compass turned out not to have one of his own and was in fact a monster. And thus, my innocence was gone. I went into an emotional tailspin, I became an asshole to everyone around me, and I quickly fell into a depression that I did not even seek treatment for about 12 years. Now let's do a little educational session. What the heck is bipolar? This next part I wrote down. The basic concept of bipolar is that you swing back and forth between depressive and manic states. Two poles. Now, depression and mania can take many different forms for people, but here are the instances in my life that helped my therapist figure out my condition. Let's hear from our sponsor. Do you want to be sort of funny and pretty creative, but also kind of annoying and loud? Well, now you can. With John. Side effects of John include an inability to get out of bed for days on end, always reacting extremely to the most minor of things, high irritability and likeliness to be an asshole to people for no reason, a high probability that you will abandon pretty much every friendship and relationship you had on a whim, and in hindsight won't be able to remember why. You will most definitely put in your 2 weeks at most jobs, within a day or even minutes after getting the idea in your head, with no plan for income moving forward. You will likely constantly be moving and never settling down in an apartment for more than a year because you want change. You will, though, have the ability to work on projects nonstop for days at a time, but you won't think about eating or sleeping. There's a high chance of getting stuck in thought loops for hours on end, unable to focus on anything else, and more. John, you'll hate it. So, all right. Back to early 2020. Over the first few months of therapy, I learned about my disorder and how to cope with it, but in time, we decided that therapy would not be enough, that I likely had a chemical imbalance in my brain, and that medication was needed to treat my condition. So my therapist wrote down their diagnosis and my symptoms. I brought that to a psychiatrist, and they prescribed me a combination of mood stabilizers and antidepressants. Now, normally it can be a very long journey for you and your psychiatrist to find the right combination of meds that work with your body and mind. And this can be a very, very bumpy road. For me, I was extremely fortunate that the first thing we tried worked. And very quickly, I started just to feel normal. I have no other way of describing it. Most of my symptoms subsided. I was able to control myself emotionally. I was able to think things through. I was able to actually think and then act rather than immediately reacting to something and going, why did I do that? My intrusive, recursive thought loops that I'd just be stuck in and just those went away. I started on that medication about 8 months ago, and it's been smooth sailing ever since. Genuinely, for the first time in my adulthood, I feel like a stable human being. And with that stability, I've finally been able to look at my life and think about what I really want to get out of it and what I really want to do. Getting to work at Funhaus has been such a light in my life, and I truly mean that. Funhaus really just provided a foundation for me to just kind of like stop this whirlwind that I was stuck in and, kind of find my footing. I was given the creative freedom to basically do anything, and so I did. I had such a blast making insane photoshops, filming little sketches, producing videos, and eventually producing my own series. At Funhaus, not only did I find work that I truly loved, but I found people as well. But seriously, I've grown so close to so many people at Funhaus, and I feel like, only time will tell, that I've made friends for life. I cannot emphasize enough just how much I love Funhaus and how the last thing that I would ever want to do is leave. I am leaving Funhaus. So like I said, I'm finally in a stable place thinking about what I want to do. One of the main things I've always wanted to do is travel, and more specifically, live in as many countries as I can throughout my life. I had formulated many plans to pursue this, whether it was traveling or finding another place, another country to live in. I was never able to act on those plans because, one, I was undiagnosed bipolar, and formulating and executing really any plan beyond step one was an impossibility. The other thing is that I had trouble getting out of LA since this is the post-production hub of the world, and all my experience was in post-production. But since joining Funhaus, I've been provided the extremely privileged opportunity of building an online presence. I've been streaming off and on for about 4 years now, but since I started on my medication, I've been streaming regularly for about 7 months now, and I have received an overwhelming amount of support from the community. So much so that I feel that if I'm smart with my money, I can stream for a living while traveling the world. All I really need to do is only live in places with good internet, which is pretty much anywhere outside of the United States and Australia. I know what you're saying. Why don't you just stay at Funhaus and work remotely in the rest of the world? Well, first of all, a lot of times work needs to be done, whether it's producing or notes or all those other things, during, Los Angeles working hours. The other thing is that there are a lot of things I want to do creatively, and I can't do that when I'm pouring almost all of my creative energy into a full-time job. You might remember earlier this year, shortly after I started my medication, I produced a video called Nintendo Peripherals Celebration. At the end of the video, I very optimistically said, you know what, maybe I'll just release a video every 1 or 2 months. After that video premiered, I then thought about it and was like, oh wait, the past 2 months, I haven't had one moment of free time, I've either been working, streaming, or making this video. I really wanted to continue making videos of that caliber, but because I'm now a medicated, stable person, I was able to acknowledge that continuing to constantly work and never take time off would have been an unhealthy thing to do. So after a lot of thinking and talking with my friends and with my coworkers, I decided that if I wanted to pursue both my dream of living internationally and my dream of pursuing other creative projects, I would need to leave Funhaus as a producer. Haha! Oh, wait, hold on. I said as a producer. That's right. As I said in the beginning of this video, I am staying on at Funhaus as, for lack of a better term, cast. You're saying, wait, what? Yeah, the recording aspect of my job at Funhaus really only took up between 3 and 6 hours a week, depending on how many videos I was in. So I'm saying it here, it's official. I'm confident I can still devote that time to Funhaus on a weekly basis. So just to be completely clear, this doesn't mean, hey, I'll be in videos every now and then when my schedule allows. No, I am making shooting with Funhaus a priority. I will probably be in just as many videos as you've seen me in previously. And probably nothing is going to change for you as a viewer. Now for me, schedule-wise, I'm still figuring all this stuff out, but the current plan is to stream on Twitch for about 30 hours a week and then spend 30 more hours a week working on personal projects. My goal is for the content that I create to come from a place of passion and not fiscal necessity. So with that in mind, I will be treating streaming like my job, which I will do 30 hours a week every week, but my other creative projects, those are not going to come out on a schedule. You know, if it's going to take me 3 months to make a video because of all the crazy animations and stuff I put into it, then I want that to be okay, and I don't want it to jeopardize my livelihood. Even though I just said I'm going to treat it as my job, I really do love streaming. I get to hang out with y'all, I get to make a goddamn fool of myself on camera, and I get to use the stream for little micro projects. I make animations, I do little musical things. You know, I do a lot more than just sit there and play video games, even though that's generally what I am doing. Now, what are these other projects, you ask? Well, to be completely honest, I'm still figuring out what I'm actually going to work on. I have a bunch of edutainment ideas, which it's like the Nintendo peripherals video where it's educational and also entertaining, but pretty much not educational at all. I've also been making music recently, and unironically, I have been writing some raps. I really want to start DMing again, and that's something that I've talked with a few people about, making like a weekly live thing. So fingers crossed. And although it's a much larger endeavor, I still want to make video games. That won't be happening anytime soon until I've fully explored a lot of these smaller, more feasible projects, unless by some twist of fate, I explode as a streamer and become a millionaire. In which case, and I stand by this, I will immediately found a game design studio and hire programmers and artists who are more talented than I am. And they will make my vision become a reality. So that's the general work plan. My life plan is to start traveling from country to country on tourist visas and never settling down anywhere, just renting long-term Airbnbs at each place that I stay. But we are still in a global pandemic, so not sure when that's actually going to happen. Oh, hey, are you still here? Let me just relax a bit. If you are still here, it means you probably want to see some of this content I keep talking about, and maybe, just maybe, you support my desire to make it. And because of that, I'm just going to tell you a bunch of things that you can do to help support me. First off, you can subscribe here and follow me on my socials, because even if I'm not working on a project that will be a video on this YouTube channel, I'm most definitely going to make a very stupid trailer for it and upload it here. Now, if you like me so much that you want to support me in the form of a monetary contribution, I would point you to my Twitch channel where you can subscribe to me. All you gotta do is you click a little button and it give it to me money. Now, if you're sitting there saying, I want to support you, John, but what do I get in return apart from hilarious content? What am I gonna get? Well, I got a little news for you. I got merch, bitches! Right now, go to pizzaposse.com and pick up some of that sweet, sweet merch, baby! We got a shirt with a pizza on it. We got a shirt with a girl in a pizza on it. We got a shirt with a goddamn undead king sitting on a throne of pizza boxes. I ordered a sample of a beanie, but the beanie ended up being too small, so we're gonna have beanies later, but I gotta find a good beanie. All right, y'all, that's it for me. I'm gonna go pet my dog and then make some cool shit. See you on the internet.